much, Kira. Thank you for joining today's webinar. I'm Andrew Campbell-Eady. I'm the Head of Communications at the Irish Centre for Diversity. We recently held the National Diversity and Inclusion Awards 2026 to recognise and celebrate the valuable work being done to progress diversity and inclusion in Ireland. This webinar series has been devised to share the insights and experiences from the sponsor, the winner, and finalists, so that any learnings can be applied to your organisation or to help with entering the next award cycle. Today's session focuses on the category Outstanding Employee Resource Group, and you may know them in your organisation as Business Resource Groups or Employee Network Groups, or any other title. Our today's sponsor is Laya Healthcare, which is part of AXA. It's the second largest provider of health insurance in Ireland with more than 500,000 members. Laya is a proud, if I'm allowed to shorthand it to Laya, Laya is a proud holder of Investors in Diversity Gold and was one of the very first organisations to be accredited with the top tier of Ireland's premier D&I accreditation and framework for progress. So congratulations to them for that. This is their fourth time sponsors of the category at the National Diversity Inclusion Awards. So huge thanks to them for their much appreciated support in making the awards possible. Laya Healthcare, like the other sponsors and the Irish Centre for Diversity, had no part in the judging process and couldn't enter themselves. Some housekeeping before we get started. I'll shortly hand over to the sponsor, and then we'll hear from the finalists in alphabetical order of first name, and finish with the winner, wrapping in about an hour. Automatic closed captions are available in the Teams controls, and I believe Kira behind the scenes will be putting a note into the chat function just to give you instructions on how to access those if you need them. The session's being recorded and will be available on the Irish Centre for Diversity website, which is irishcentreforddiversity.ie or simply icfd.ie. Everyone is muted except the panel, but please do share any comments in the chat function. We'd love to hear which groups you're joining us from. There isn't time for Q&As, but you may be able to get answers from any of the panelists by linking with them directly on LinkedIn. So without further ado, I'm very pleased to introduce our host for today's session, Erika O'Leary, Director of People and Culture at Laya Healthcare, who'll give an overview of Laya's advances in this important area, and also guide us through what is sure to be an enlightening conversation.
Thanks so much, Andrew. It's a pleasure to be here this morning, and delighted to see everybody here and see all the panelists as well. So, yeah, I suppose from a Laya perspective, as Andrew mentioned, ED&I is something that's really important to us. We are 3 times recipients, I suppose, of the the Investors in Diversity Gold accreditation, which is something we're very proud of. And yeah, I suppose for us, the reason that we sponsor this category and the reason that we are so heavily involved, I suppose, in ED&I generally is because it really aligns with our values, which are fair, caring, grounded and innovative. So I think it actually ticks the boxes of all 4 of our values, actually. And it really, I suppose, sponsoring this ERG category reflects our long-standing commitment to diversity, equity and inclusion. And we really do believe that inclusive workplaces lead to better outcomes for people and for organisations. Like ERGs, I think everybody here will agree, obviously, you know, you have put yourselves forward in this category, but they're a powerful employee-driven force for change, and they do really create spaces for underrepresented voices, and help foster belonging, helping to translate inclusion from policy to everyday culture. We really, in Laya, we recognise, you know, that there is real impact with ERGs, and with the National Diversity and Inclusion Awards, they celebrate practical measures and initiatives that improve employee experience, well-being and engagement. And well-being is something that really aligns with Laya's purpose. You know, we're an organisation, we're really focused on health and well-being, and we recognise that psychological safety and representation and belonging is critical to overall well-being at work. So I suppose, I mean, it's really a positive influence, I suppose, beyond our organisation is one of the key reasons that we do, as said, engage with the sponsorship of this important category. And, you know, this provides a platform to amplify what works in terms of ERGs. And this sponsorship allows Laya to support progress across the Irish workplaces and not just within our own walls. So they're kind of, I suppose, some of the key reasons that we do sponsor this ERG category and why it's so important to us. And we're delighted to do it and delighted to be doing it for the fourth year in a row. So look, I suppose to reiterate, we're not part of the judging process. So we're really, really delighted to hear from the panel because while we heard some of the snippets during the evening at the awards, it'll really give us a proper insight into the really valid reasons that all of you that are here today were nominated as part of this category. So I suppose without further ado, I'm pleased to welcome our first award finalist from Dornan Engineering, and this is represented by Josephine Kay.
Good morning, Erika.
Good morning, Josephine, and you're very welcome.
Thank you.
Just, I suppose, to make a brief comment, the judges commented that Dornan Engineering's work spans practical changes like inclusive facilities and PPE, alongside sponsorship and allyship programs. And I suppose just to kick off, Josephine, a concise question for you. How have ERGs fed into those policies?
So we started, so I suppose we're in our second year, we're in our first year, I suppose, of the network, the ERG network. So we've started, the fun bit was setting us up last year, but we started towards the tail end of last year that we're going to look at policies now. So like we looked at a menopause policy, which is under review at the moment with management. There's a task team of about 5-6 women that are looking at a return to work policy, and are all around, making women feel more reassured when they do come back to work, especially in the construction industry, because a project moves on in the 9 months, 12 months you're gone. So the project you would have been working on, the site you were on is finished, completed, and then you run on to the next job. So there's kind of a lot of uncertainty when you do come back. So they're kind of the policies that we're really focusing on this year, and we're taking a kind of an overhaul of all our policies and seeing where we could do better. And a big one is facilities. We've introduced free period products on one of our jobs, trial run, and it really, really worked out really well. The feedback was really good. So we're looking to introduce that across the board on all our projects. And then obviously we looked at facilities, so toilets, accessibility, all that good stuff. So we have a guideline document as well done that we're going to, when we go into a project now, that's going to be our guideline, and our aim is to make sure that we're hitting our targets on it and making it an all-inclusive.
That's fantastic, and
and it wouldn't be possible without the women's network, to be fair, because we're starting out in our D&I journey. So it's we need someone to represent everybody.
And you must be getting some great feedback, as you said, in the construction industry. You're really trying to drive this change.
Yeah. I think we're probably a little bit far behind some industries on our ED&I, so it's really taking focus. It's a big thing in our business at the moment, to tackle and to take on and change.
Fantastic. You're doing some great work. Well, keep it up, Josephine, and
Thank
well
you very
done.
much.
Congratulations again. So without further ado, I'll move on to our next speaker, and that is Marcelo Figueiredo El Silva, who is with us today to speak on behalf of the finalist Greenhouse Software. So you're very welcome, Marcelo.
Thank you, Erika. And by the way, you nailed my surname, so well done. That was perfect.
I practiced that a lot. I'll just give a quick intro, I suppose, and a quick brief, I suppose, introduction into why you were nominated. So the judges were very impressed and congratulated you on having 80% of employees engaged in arbors and such a strong cross-collaboration between groups. So a question for you, Marcelo, how have you managed to create ERGs that feel both deeply supportive of identity and genuinely inclusive of allies across the organization?
Yeah, and hi everyone. It's great to be here. Hear everything that's being done. So fantastic opportunity. Thanks Irish Centre for Diversity for organizing the seminar, and Erika for guiding today's conversation. So my name is Marcelo. My pronouns are him, he, him, and I am an IDEA, Inclusion, Diversity, Equity, and Allyship Program Manager at Greenhouse Software. Thanks for the question, Erika. And I'd love just to share a little bit about what we are building at Greenhouse. At our core, we believe that people are the reason businesses thrive, and we are honored to help companies get measurably better at hiring the best talent. So Greenhouse exemplifies the holistic and sustained commitment to D&I within its workplace culture, and our core values of belonging, purpose, and entrepreneurship guide us in embracing humanity, differences, and diverse viewpoints, really enabling us to hire and retain great people. So at Greenhouse, our diverse workforce, united by the dedication to the company's success, forms the bedrock of the IDEA team, which activates the conditions for everyone to thrive. We are committed to IDEA, and by recognizing and celebrating it, we're creating a workplace that embraces everyone's unique backgrounds and perspectives. We create the conditions for everyone here at Greenhouse to thrive, and we support our Arbor leaders with an impactful program since 2022. So talking about our Greenhouse Arbors, a quick overview about our Arbors that are the employee resource groups. That's how we call them. Very connected to Greenhouse and then Arbors, so it's all that theme. So our Arbors, it is a cornerstone of our IDEA initiatives. The Greenhouse Arbors are open to all employees, and 83% of our employees are part of at least one of our Arbors. So we went for 80% now already to 83%. We have 8 Arbors that provide community and support for employees with shared identities and allies. Each Arbor receives an annual budget to support its programming, and cross-collaborative work helps us foster an inclusive environment where everyone can grow, focusing on a one-team mindset. You might be wondering which arbors we have here. So we have Black House that provides a safe and supportive space for Black employees. We have Full House that supports caregivers. Jade House that is connecting East Asian, South Asian, Southeast Asian, and Pacific Islander employees. We have Rainbow House that creates a welcoming environment for LGBTQ+ employees. Trellis advocates for those that have mental and physical health conditions. Verde is a community for Latinx and Hispanic employees. And Women Grow works to promote a more inclusive workplace by increasing visibility for women. And we also have our EMEA Arbor that is focused on connection for a multicultural community of employees that we have here in the region. So you can see that we cover a wide range of identities, creating a strong sense of intersectionality and community. Now talking about the structure of Arbor leadership, each Arbor is composed of 5 Arbor leaders. We have a chair, vice chair, communications lead, events lead, and membership lead. In addition, each Arbor has an executive sponsor that is a representative of Greenhouse leadership. So these things really reflect our diverse workforce, also having representation from various departments. So we'll have product, sales and customer success, marketing, people, legal, finance. It's really a broad participation. And the senior leadership participation is also another strong element to the success of our Arbors, as it helps us stay accountable while bringing visibility to IDEA and its importance to how we operate as a business. All the structures we have in place are effective as we focus on purpose. I think that's my take on that. To give an idea, in 2025, we had 20 initiatives celebrating various groups and raising awareness about different culture and heritage months, and the NPS being above 90. So there's really a strong participation, and not only like the quality of those events as well. Besides focusing on manageable workload for our Arbor leaders, so they can continue to balance their full-time role responsibilities, the programming focuses on culture and heritage, community, and cross-collaboration and allyship. Just to give an example, Jade House and Women Grow organized an event for API Heritage Month last May, and then LGBT Pride Month. In EMEA was a collaboration between our EMEA Arbor and Full House, our Arbor for caregivers. Another focus area of our program is to invest in our Arbor leaders. So they develop leadership skills, they're offered public speaking opportunities. For example, they can MC our All Hands Live, receiving coaching to do it. And also have company visibility, and they get to join in person for an offsite that happens annually to collaborate and develop their programs for the year. So when we think about Culture Heritage Month celebrations, community, cross-collaboration, allyship, investment in our people, that brings a robust reach with our initiatives, resulting in deep engagement and true cultural belonging, where people feel safe and thrive. Not only arborists play a key role in the culture we have, they also are actively engaged to share feedback about our product features, really helping Greenhouse continue to develop inclusive products. So for example, the CV anonymization, we have an ID verification beta testing. They were very active in those processes. Additionally, our arbor communities are exposed to external guest speakers and businesses that are owned by underrepresented groups, engaging employees for external impact, which is very important for us. Sorry, just my throat here. And measuring impact and guiding our action plan is key to address intentional and real change. So when it comes to employee satisfaction and allyship, our latest engagement survey had 81% company participation and the sense of belonging scored 85 points, showcasing employee commitment to our inclusive culture. Also, our leadership metric shows that 83% of Greenhouse employees have taken one or more actions to create a more inclusive environment. Thank you for bearing with me. I'm almost at the end. So to end, I say it frequently as it's a really important piece. Idea should be embedded into the business. It can't and shouldn't be siloed, a siloed business function. At Greenhouse, we're not just building a product, we're building a diverse community with a strong sense of belonging. And with our arbors, by focusing on the power of cross-collaboration, it highlights the importance and impact of all Greenhouse arbors work. Our arbors continue to transform our workplace into a more inclusive and more equitable environment. And as we continue to evolve our programs to keep them meaningful, we continue to invest, we listen to our employees' sentiment, have leadership involved and advocating, and keep measuring impact. I'd say this is why our employees feel deeply supported and engaged, either because of their identity, allyship, or both. And that's all I had to share today. Thanks, everyone. And feel free to connect on LinkedIn. Really happy to connect there. And back to you, Erika.
Thanks so much, Marcelo.
I have one question. Marcelo, could you just define what IDEA stands for? I'm feeling it's an acronym, but I didn't want to assume anything. So if you could just define that, please.
Yeah, IDEA be inclusion, diversity, equity, and allyship. That's the terminology we use internally.
Love that. Fantastic.
Thank you.
I think something that strikes me just while you were talking there, Marcelo, and even when I was reading the notes, 80%, but you're now saying 83%. That's an incredible engagement in terms of ERG engagement. And I'm sure everybody here and probably the wider audience who might be listening to this are curious whether you could give any insight into how you've got that level of engagement with your ERGs. As I said, it's a phenomenal score.
Yeah, so one of the things that we do, we have IDEA onboarding sessions. So when I host those onboarding sessions with new hires, we highlight the arbors that we have internally. And it is, as I mentioned, open to everyone. So if people feel like they belong, they belong. And then we also have Slack channels. Some of them will be private to certain communities. And then we also have the public ones where everyone can join, including allies. And we use a platform where people can find those communities as well. So when they're joining Greenhouse, they can access Epoch, that is our a software that we use, where people can find those communities, join the communities, and immediately be added to those Slack channels. And there is a lot of activity and initiatives happening there, a lot of conversations. And we use our newsletter as well to promote those events. So there's a lot of things like happening.
A lot of work.
A lot of work, yeah. And it pays off, as you see, kind of like 83%. It's a massive achievement for us.
Well done, Marcelo. Fantastic.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for joining us today.
Of course, thank you.
So I'm going to move on to our third finalist, who are the Health Information and Quality Control, or HIQA. And both Phoebe Nolan and Anna Delaney are here with us today. So you're very welcome, Phoebe and Anna.
Thanks very much. Thanks for having us.
So, in terms of the judges' feedback, what they've said is your employee-led voluntary model with national reach and strong year-on-year growth really impressed the judges. So, my question for you today is, what do you think has been the key to sustaining momentum and engagement across different offices and remote staff in 2025?
Hi, so I'm going to speak first, if that's okay.
Okay.
So for us, the key to sustaining momentum and engagement in 2025 was to take a really deliberative, inclusive approach to how we work. From the beginning, we recognized that our colleagues are spread across the 3 offices and many work remotely, so we made sure that our activities were accessible to everyone. One of the biggest drivers of engagement was our consistency. We meet every month, we plan our events for the year in advance, and we organize subcommittees to keep things going, moving in between meetings. This steady structure meant all members, regardless of location, stayed connected and involved. Another major factor was visibility. We work closely with HR so that every new staff member learns about the Diversity and Inclusion Working Group during induction into HICWA. Some members of the HR team are also members of our working group, which has really helped the communication between the working group and HR. We've also collaborated with facilities to introduce HICWA branded rainbow lanyards, and we regularly use posters, flyers, and email updates. This has created a shared sense of presence across the offices and for home workers. Running events in every office and online was also incredibly crucial. In 2025, we delivered activities such as Pride, International Women's Day. Sorry, don't mind the dog. He's annoyed because I've been sneaking him treats throughout this call and I can't while I'm speaking.
He's just giving his own input there, Phoebe.
Yeah. He's like, this is very important, mommy, but also I'm really hungry, and stop talking and start giving me snacks. So there you go. Hopefully he'll be quiet now for another second. I've thrown him one to the side. So Neurodiversity Celebration Week and EU Diversity Month, both in person and virtually. Also, a massive new event that we started was our Diversity and Inclusion in Practice. A showcase was to have a standout example of what HICWA does and how it's embedded in that diversity and inclusion in practice, held across all 3 offices and online. We had over 160 staff attend, both in person and online, and that level of reach really helped build the momentum. And for our smaller company, that was a massive amount of staff online for the event and in person. Anna, you may continue.
Thanks very much, Phoebe. And just to kind of add to what Phoebe said, as well as everything that she said, another thing that I suppose really helped us, to maintain that connection and the momentum across all the office and the home workers and in a hybrid environment was the partnership and collaboration that we engaged in. So we work regularly with the social club and our wellbeing team, which are situated within HR. And we've also strengthened our relationship with senior leadership as well. So our CEO helped formalise our communication pathway to the EMT, and that really supported and encouraged staff across the organisation to engage with our work. We also then worked with staff directly. So, for example, a staff member with an expertise in the area of neurodiversity and gave a talk on their area of knowledge during the year, which was again very well attended. In the kind of a bit, I think it was about over 150 staff or maybe more who attended it. Again, considering the number of people and considering that a lot of our staff wouldn't be available necessarily every day, that was a really huge. That was kind of the maximum available people that you could get. So we were really delighted with that attendance. And then finally as well, I suppose it's really important for us to have something meaningful to take part in to sustain engagement. And we definitely found that again this year. So from like our charity partnerships, so we made we had a clothing drive and we donated to Work Equal, and we also raised funds for Belong To during our Pride Month celebrations. We also developed an e-learning on diversity basics and focused actions that people could see, they could feel, and they could feel proud of as well. And I think that was really crucial to sustaining that engagement. So I suppose it was really a combination of what Phoebe said earlier on, structure, visibility, hybrid delivery and collaboration. And that, all of those things together had to keep the momentum going throughout 2025.
Fantastic. No, it sounds like you're doing an awful lot of work. And again, hard work has to go into making things work both in person and on a remote basis. And I think everybody here can appreciate it can be difficult, especially when you're in a hybrid world or have remote team members working with you. I know it's something that we focus on as well in Laya. So, really interesting to hear how how you have been applying that and how you've been working on it. So well done.
Yeah.
Thanks, Million.
Thanks, guys. Without further ado, I will move on to our next finalist. So this is CISC, and we're represented by Anthony Burrows. You're very welcome, Anthony.
Thank you for having me.
So the judges in this particular instance, Anthony, they commended the fact that many ERG leaders are neurodiverse themselves and brought real authenticity and depth to this nomination and the interview. This was commented on favourably by the judges. So my question for you today, Anthony, is how has this lived experience leadership shaped the design of supports like the Neuro Inclusion Toolkit and safe spaces for your colleagues?
Great question. And before I begin, I'm Anthony Burrows. I'm the Social Value Manager with CISC, and I am relatively new in the space of ERGs, and the Beyond the Blueprint ERG is so new as well. It's only a year old. And a bit of a backstory for the ERG before I answer the question is that before the ERG was established, there was a collaboration between the EDIB partner, Amy Martin, and the Health and Wellbeing team for Neurodiversity Week. They had a training to showcase what is neurodiversity. And at that point, I hadn't shared my own neurodiversity. I didn't feel safe in any of my previous employment situations. And it was at that point the chat function on that call was so welcoming and so heartwarming because everybody else was sharing their neurodiversities, and it just felt like such a welcoming space to work in. I had only been in the company 3 months at that stage, so it was really, really heartwarming to see that there was people so comfortable and so vulnerable to share their neurodiversities that I began to feel comfortable and in that safe space to do so. So that's the backstory, and Beyond the Blueprint is a bottom-up, top-down leadership structure. It's incredible. There's 12 people on the EDIB leadership team, from myself and Reese as co-chairs, to the events team, to the collaboration team, and then the subgroups that happen between that. Everybody is comfortable to share their lived experience within that ERG. And also within the meetings themselves, different structures have to be put in place for different individuals to be able to bring themselves to the meeting. So everybody is conscious of people being able to bring themselves to that meeting. And it's important for this ERG to exist because research says that 1 in 4 people, this research was based in the UK, but 1 in 4 people in construction are neurodiverse themselves. So we need to create a safe space for all people living with neurodiversity. And that is a spectrum in itself. So again, it's been able to find the spaces for all individuals. The team and the leadership team is also supported by an executive sponsor, Marcus Carnes, who's the COO and has lived experience of neurodiversity. He is an advocate. He is an ally. He is a bedrock of change within the ERG. If we're looking to get policy change, if we're looking to introduce the toolkit, there's buy-in from executive leadership, and that is essential for being able to drive impact and change. I've written notes because I got this question beforehand, which was great. And again, we haven't we haven't completed the toolkit. It's on our to-do list, and it's something that we're hoping to launch it in April of this year. We're using what we believe are really good examples, which is the CITB Neurodiversity Toolkit and the Bank of Ireland Neurodiversity Toolkit, and we're gonna take the best parts of that for the construction sector, and we are going to add our lived experience into that. Again, we know that 1 in 4 or around 1 in 4 neurodiverse, but like myself, they may not have come out, they may not feel safe to share their neurodiversities, and they need to read the lived experience and the lived example to hopefully encourage them to be a bit more vulnerable and to be able to step into a safe space. That is something that they can do, but again, it's also with that toolkit, it's a support tool for leadership to understand neurodiversity as well, so that when somebody is vulnerable, that they're treated with respect and dignity. The ERG has a leadership team of neurodiversity, but as I say, 1 in 4, there's a wider leadership team within CISC that we can kind of stretch from. And I think that's a part of the end of the whole story, is that it is a community, and it's been able to kind of get the resources from that community is really important.
That's great.
Thank you again.
Thanks so much for that, Anthony, for sharing that. Yeah, I think listening to you there, it is so important. I think the lived experiences, and I mean, even I can hear, I suppose, how important it is to have that exec sponsor and that person who is just so driven to support and driven to be an ally for everything that you're trying to achieve, and the learnings from others like the Bank of Ireland, etc., how that feeds into your toolkit. It's just so important. I think this is what this is all about. You know, we're all learning from one another. And we're all just trying to drive towards a better space in ED9 and neurodiversity in this particular instance. So well done. You're doing a great job. Thanks for that. So I'll move on to our penultimate finalist in this category, and that is US Bank. And with us today is Louise Foley. So you're very welcome, Louise.
Thank you very much.
So reaching nearly 3,000 employees across Europe while combining mentoring, charity impact and career development is a significant achievement, which the judges enjoyed learning about and praised you immensely for. So my question for you today, Louise, is which initiative in 2025 had the most transformative effect on employees' sense of empowerment and progression?
Thanks, Erika. And I'll just do a quick intro as well before I launch in. So, as Erika said, I'm Louise Foley. I work with US Bank, or Elevon, actually, as you might know us, as a change management program director. So I've been here for almost 10 years. And about 18 months ago, I joined our Women of Europe business resource group in my own attempt to try and make a difference. So it was our first time submitting an application for an award. So it was a real honor to be chosen as a finalist and to talk to you this morning. So when I look back at 2025, I think the most transformational impact of the Women of Europe BRG probably did not come from a single initiative in isolation. So we tried to create a deliberate program of events that recognise that employees can't progress if they don't feel supported, seen and safe to show up as themselves. So there's probably about 4 initiatives that stand out for their lasting effect on empowerment and progression. So that's our speed mentoring program, our International Women's Day panel events, our breast cancer awareness sessions, and our Step Up for Charity virtual walk across Europe. So the BRG Speed Mentoring Programme has a direct and tangible impact on our employees' sense of progression. So it created access to our senior leaders, our C-suite actually, and even our CEO, that many employees simply do not have in their day-to-day roles. And it did so in a way that felt intentional and personal and safe. So our leaders were fantastic sponsors of this event, giving up their time to meet with a number of mentees, and the feedback was really, really good. Our participants spoke about how the conversations kind of demystified the leadership journey and reframed progression as achievable rather than inspirational or aspirational. For many, you know, it was the first time they could open up and discuss confidence, ambition, imposter syndrome, with an uncertainty with somebody who has already done this before. So the feedback was fantastic for that speed mentoring program. The next event is probably the virtual and in-person International Women's Day 2025 events. They were defining moments, we thought, for empowerment across Europe. So the sessions went beyond celebration. They were about space for honest conversations about neurodiversity, lived experience, allyship, and again, non-linear career paths. And leaders spoke, we thought, with vulnerability rather than polish, and which mattered deeply to everyone attending those sessions. And it was all very relatable. We used the theme for all women and girls, and employees were reminded that progression, you know, is not about conformity, and that difference, whether it's background, experience, or life stage, is not something to overcome, but something to value, which I think was a really strong message. So another event I think that was quite transformative was our Breast Cancer Ireland awareness sessions, and that was delivered as part of Breast Cancer Awareness Month. These sessions, I think, really mattered because they addressed a reality left unspoken at work. You know, health directly impacts your confidence, your presence, your progression. So we tried to create a space to talk openly about breast cancer awareness, early detection, available supports, and we tried to help remove stigma, fear, replacing silence with knowledge and empathy. So I think, again, for many employees, it was the first time they felt that we acknowledged the intersection between work and health and career sustainability. And I think that knowledge was empowering. I think, again, it signals that progression is not about performance, but about being supported through all stages of life. And psychological safety is a prerequisite for ambition. And these sessions, I think, strengthened it. So we also did a virtual walk. I have to say, keep saying virtual walk across Europe, because people were saying, how did you do that? Where we did a virtual walk across Europe for charity. So again, brought empowerment to life through collective action. And I think we had almost 230 employees coming together across countries and roles, and we covered close to 20,000 kilometres in about 20 days, I think. And we raised significant funds for charity, for Oscar's Kids, for Women in Tech and Teen Turn, who we hope to continue working with this year. So I think beyond the numbers and the charity donation, it built a sense of belonging. It connected people who may never collaborate, and reinforce that impact is strongest when it's shared. And again, each initiative, I think, really aligned back to our Women of Europe BRG objective to develop a culture where everyone feels supported, empowered, and able to thrive. We address progression through mentoring and empowerment through visibility, and sustainability through wellbeing and health awareness. So we think that together these efforts met employees really where they were and helped them move forward. And we look forward to doing more and evolving this year. So that was our 4 key things. So thank you for your time.
Fantastic initiatives there, Louise. No, thank you so much for sharing. Really, really good. I think two that jumped out at me there, you know, as being really unique were the walk across Europe. I'm really curious actually on that. How did you manage to do a walk across Europe virtually?
So we set up a target which we set out. We were hitting all our European locations. You know, we set out a map. We created a challenge using the Pacer app. Everyone signed up to that app, and you were able to track your steps throughout. So it created this, as I said, the sense of belonging, because, you know, I rarely meet our colleagues in the Polish branch in Spain, but we were, you know, messaging to say, come on, you, let's get moving. And again, it resulted in us raising funds for charity. So I think it was all a great challenge to get involved with. So they're calling for it earlier in the year this year. I think everyone wants to get back to health once we get rid of the rain.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I hear you on that one for sure.
Yes.
Thank you so much for sharing, Louise. It's fantastic, and well done again.
Thank you.
And our last finalist today is our winner, the Laya Network at the HSE, which is represented today by Maria Barry and Kelly O'Farrell. So Maria, Kelly, you're very welcome.
Thank you very much, Erika, and we're delighted to be here. And I just want to say, God, I'm just blown away with all the work everybody has done. It's such an interesting webinar to hear what other organizations are doing, and it sounds fabulous.
So congratulations on your win in this category, guys. I said, I know I met you on the night and it was a great night, and it was so lovely to meet you and to get to chat in person. In terms then of this category, the judges were very impressed by the HSE's role in creating a trusted national space for employees with disabilities, neurodiverse conditions and long-term health conditions, ensuring their voices shape the HSE's culture and setting a strong example of how an ERG can affect meaningful change at scale. So my question for you both today is, how has embedding lived experience into policy development influenced real change for staff with disabilities and long-term health conditions?
Kelly, I might start off and then hand over to you. Yep. So thanks, Erika, for the chance to speak today. My name is Maria Barry. I'm a Diversity, Equality and Inclusion Manager in the HSE, and Kelly's our chair of the Laya network. So yeah, it's really important in the HSE that we embed the real life experiences of all staff into HSE policy. And the way we do that is through a quality impact assessment. So it's this kind of tool or framework that we use. So I'll talk a little bit about how we do that, how that works, and then Kelly will probably speak about the impact that has actually had in the real lives of our colleagues. Just about Laya, it was established back in 2022. So we now have about 170 members. So it's a lot of members, but we still have a long way to go, considering there's about 150,000 staff in the HSE, and we reckon about 14% have a disability. So we're really just on the tip of the iceberg in capturing members. But a key role members of the network have played since 2022 is participating in equality impact assessment workshops. And they do that in collaboration with our team, the DEI team, to provide feedback on HSE policy from the real experiences and perspectives of staff with disabilities. So the EQIA tool itself, it's an internationally recognized methodology to enhance policy, plans and decisions in organizations. So it's promoted by IREC, the Irish Human Rights and Equality Commission, as a way of, I suppose, building equality into workplace policy. So it's really a way of, I suppose, equality proofing organizational policy. So how we run that is we run equality impact assessment workshops. So they're, I suppose, facilitated by the DEI team and members of all our staff networks. So Laya, our cultural diversity network and our LGBTQIA plus network will participate in those workshops. So they come together to review the policy within the workshop from a diversity lens. So bringing real life experiences and perspectives into that policy. And we do that then by using a tool. So we kind of have a structured questionnaire that we go through. And questions that we put to members in that workshop are, what's the policy actually trying to achieve? What are the impacts on any of the 9 protected diversity characteristics? What are the likely negative impacts, or can these be eliminated or mitigated? What's the likely positive impacts in relation to diversity? And then what actions or recommendations can we record and bring back to the policy owners to ask them to make those changes? So when we record the feedback, then we share that with the policy owners. And, you know, sometimes there's a bit of, I suppose, discussion as well on those recommendations. It's not always clear cut. We might have to maybe advocate for some of the recommendations that we're making. Some of them don't get through, some of them do, but luckily enough, a lot of the recommendations that are made in those workshops are accepted by the policy owners. And since 2021, we've conducted 16 of these workshops with members of our networks to review HSE policies. And last year, a colleague of mine did a formal evaluation of the process. And looking back at all those reports that we did on policies, 92% of the recommendations were implemented, which kind of means policy owners are listening and they're taking on board what we're saying. So the types of recommendations that might come through in those workshops might be changes to language and terminology to make the documents more inclusive, maybe changes to make them more accessible. You know, a lot of HSE policy is very lengthy, quite difficult to read. So looking at it from an accessibility lens, increasing references to diversity. So often in policy, there's very little reference to any form of diversity. So looking at ways we can embed diversity across the policy. And then just other considerations that policy owners may simply just not have taken into account because they didn't have the lived experience. So I suppose for me, the process really highlights the gaps that can exist if we don't embed real life experience from staff into policy. So it just really makes the policy more robust, more inclusive, more fit for purpose, and just more inclusive for everybody. So that's kind of a summary of the process. Where we would really like to get to, though, is to make this process mandatory. So at the moment, it's, I suppose, the DEI team advocating to policy owners when either a policy is up for review or there's a new one in development that we get in there and we're at the table. But it's really at the discretion of the policy owner. But eventually, we would love that every policy that's either up for review or is new, it goes through this process. And we've seen the impact. You know, the evaluations showed the recommendations were taken on board. So it really has made a huge impact in making policy more inclusive.
Fantastic. Thanks, Maria. Kelly?
So thanks, Maria, for that summary. I suppose I am the chair of the Laya network, so I am. So I'm coming from the side of the real life experience of an employee who has a disability in the workplace, and also chairing employee resource group, which is particularly designed for employees with disability, health-related needs, and neurodiversity. So to have the ability to share our opinions and voices in terms of organizational and policy development is extremely important, because at the end of the day, if you don't have a disability yourself, it's very hard to even begin to imagine what it's like to live in a world as someone who may feel marginalized in society and in the workplace. And the group kind of felt that a lot of the policies maybe were outdated and not written from the viewpoint of someone with a lived experience. So our involvement in the Laya network with the DEI team has allowed us to, given us a platform to allow us to influence and shape policy development to ensure that our voices are heard in those policies, particularly in terms of, if you read the inclusive communication policy, you can see the real life experience and the feedback very apparent throughout the entire policy of how someone with a disability would like to be spoken to and spoken about and addressed in the workplace, and how they would like their disability to be understood and communicated. The other big one for us, and I think it's the primary piece really, is reasonable accommodations. I know when I started in the group 4 years ago, there was a lot of discussion around there being no formal way of addressing a reasonable accommodations and achieving a reasonable accommodations in your day-to-day work. There was no kind of formal structure. Put in a lot of work in terms of policy development to ensure that there is a foundation and a contract designed and accessible between a line manager and a staff member who does share that they have a disability and will need a reasonable accommodation in the workplace. And I think that's the primary thing for us. We want to feel like that we have the infrastructure to be enabled to perform our job to a high standard and be put forward for promotions like anyone else in the workplace, and not feel like that we're always on the back step and nearly demoted or disenabled to engage in the workplace equally as everyone else. So we have been able to be given this platform through the network to get our voice across to the whole organisation to ensure that someone with a disability has the same right as anyone else, and we have the same right to promotional opportunities and career progression, and that's very important. Because having a disability myself, I use reasonable accommodations in my day-to-day job, but that can't hinder me from progressing in my job. So it has allowed me to develop a platform where I've been able to share my experiences to ensure that I have some maybe legal basis by being part of the network, that my line manager has to say, this is real, this is happening, I have to abide by this, and this has to be put in place. So it has given us a little bit of, I suppose, recognition and strength to progress forward with what we need, and that's very important. it's very easy to say you understand what it's like to have a disability, but if you don't have one, you maybe don't specifically understand where this tiny little challenges for someone else could be a very big challenge for someone with a disability. If there isn't an accessible ramp at the front entrance to the building that you have a meeting, how are you going to get in to attend the meeting with your colleagues? So it can be something very basic like that that isn't in place, and we need that platform to be able to feed back that information to the HSE to ensure that we have the right supports in place. I have seen huge changes in policy development in the last few years, and I can see the feedback in the policies that the group has given, because I've sat in those meetings and you can see it translated into actuality. But like as Maria said, we have a list of wants and needs and wishes. Not 100% of them are met, but I would say at least 90% of them are. And I think we've never been told no. We've been told we will work with you to implement that. We just need to structure to work for the organisation correctly.
Fantastic. I said I was blown away on the night when I listened to all the great things that you're doing, guys. And as I said, 92% of policy recommendations being implemented, that's a phenomenal amount as well. And look, it is important to go back to the figures and look at how it has actually impacted. And that is just an incredible achievement. So well done in all the work you're doing. And it must be very reassuring, I would say, and empowering for employees and in the HSE to know, I suppose, that this Lakela platform is there for, to speak up and champion for supports and career progression. So I just think, yeah, you're doing a fantastic job, and it's a well-deserved winners in this category. So I suppose without further ado, I am going to hand back over to Andrew, who's going to give us a wrap up.
That he is indeed. Thank you very much, Erika, for sharing that wonderful session, and thank you to our wonderful panelists and our winner for taking us through all the amazing initiatives that's been done in this area. We've got a little bit more time left, so I'm gonna selfishly fill that. There's no early get outs for you here. I've got some questions for the panelists, but before I get there, I just was really heartened to see that a common theme through all the different contributions today was kind of acknowledging the value of lived experience and the way that the ERGs can harness that and give a platform to those experiences and using them to drive policy change and transform culture. So wonderful to see that. Also, a common theme was the importance of buy-in from senior leadership and support from them. Marcelo, you talked about how the different arbors are actually resourced and have their own budget. So I'm sure there's a huge work around negotiating support for all of those different arbors and making sure that that whole bottom-up, top-down piece was all in place. So that's great to hear. On to my questions then. So Anthony, I may have missed it. And by the way, I love the Beyond the Blueprint name for your ERG. That's a fantastic thing, and so fits with CISC and the work that you do. I may have missed it, but is Beyond the Blueprint, is that an umbrella term for all of your ERGs, or is that just the neurodiversity one? And how many other ERGs do you have?
I also love the name Beyond the Blueprint, and it was the leadership team from the neurodiverse group who named the neurodiverse group Beyond the Blueprint, because of it kind of speaks easier to the audience. There are 5 ERGs at the moment, and no, Beyond the Blueprint is not an umbrella term for all of them. It's just for the neurodiverse group.
Okay, thank you very much, and good to know. Yeah, good to know there are specific ERGs for different areas, so that's wonderful to hear. Phoebe and Anna, I love the term hyper-delivery. I've written that down and underlined it, and I'm sure I'll be hearing it from Caroline, our MD, so I love that. What I wanted to ask is, how did you get leadership to engage and give their time? Were there any challenges around that? Because we've heard from all of you that leadership is part of the process, but I'm just wondering how I presume that leadership are very busy people, how you get them to volunteer their time to something that, like the ERGs, which I'm assuming are voluntary. And sorry to kind of land you in that spotlight there with that question, but with an organization like HICWA, I thought that it'd be quite good to hear from you on that.
Yeah, Anna, are you all right if I speak?
Sure, do please.
Yeah, okay. So I just wanted to make sure I wasn't overstepping. Yeah, one of the biggest challenges is always getting leadership involved. I actually think a massive part of it is when we started doing the National Diversity Awards and we brought our CEO the very first time. I think it opened their mind to like the importance and like the great movement that it is to be involved in diversity and inclusion, that we're not just a small group. And from that, we got way more connected with HR and them kind of helping us. And a massive thing as well is they've started a people and strategy program within HICWA, and the HR person reached out to us and actually asked, could he speak to our group? And I was like, well, if you want to speak to our group, go for it, not a problem. And he was phenomenal. He was brilliant at the way he was explaining. And then, of course, I kind of coerced him into coming to the group because I was like, you speak really well. It would be incredible to have that connect with HR to see all the work that we're doing, but also to have more of that like link with the higher ups. And since then, it's been a lot easier to get the funding that we need to go to events or even to the Irish Centre for Diversity conference, which was brilliant. And he even came along and he invited the two chairs, which was myself and another Anna. We have a few Annas in the group. And it was eye-opening. And he, even the first time he introduced himself, he was just like, I know this is going to seem like a stretch, but I'm just going to lay out my biases. Like, I'm a white cis man, but please, work with me while I discuss this, and please have openness. He was just, it was so wonderful to see someone that I wouldn't have expected from HR to just come in so open and say, I do have biases, but I really want to like push past those biases. And honestly, having that connection with HR has been a massive improvement this year. And from that, we're working way more with our communications team and with our diversity and inclusion in practice showcase. They were a massive part of interacting with us and helping us develop it. And from that, they saw that the way that we use the cohesiveness from being online and in person and catering to more disabilities and kind of neurodivergence and like how their brains work, we were able to make more of a flowing like layout, which ended up HICWA have taken it, the comms communications team have now taken it to be their layout for how they're going to do other social events and big events in the company. So I think that was really great. So I think it's, our collaborating with other departments and building that kind of friendship and having someone in the communications team on our working group has really helped. So I think that's how we've kind of done it. We've slowly been building ties and getting them really involved to kind of see the inner workings of the machine, how the ice cream's made. Okay, and I think that's really helped with getting the help that we need and that little bit more assistance.
Thank you, Phoebe. I think that will be a great help to people who are watching this, either recording or on the call today, who are maybe earlier in their D&I journey and wondering how they've heard so much more. We talk a lot about getting leadership on board. So that is a great example of the way to do it. So thank you very much for outlining that. Okay, we're coming up to time now. So I really am going to say my big thank yous now. There's incredible work being done. So thank you to all of you again for sharing all of that and giving advice and serving as a resource for anyone that has questions in this area. Thank you to Erika and Laya for sponsorship of this whole category. Thank you to our finalists and to Maria and Kelly at the HSE for sharing your story. Great sharing there. Thank you to Kira for the essential behind the scenes work that you do. Thank you to you, the audience, for joining us. The recording will be available shortly in a few days on our website, which I outlined earlier, and contact us through the website to register for any further webinars in this series and to view the other recordings. Thank you very much for your time today.
Thanks, Andrew. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.